Zoran.
Thank you very much, Bob. So, ladies and gentlemen, contrary to what is announced in the program, I will not talk to you about the cloud computing strategy of European Union, and I will not preach about the benefits which cloud computing can bring to different communities, because I know that I can learn much more about this from you. So what I will try to do is actually present you a global picture, why this is important for European science and why it matters a lot that we work in this respect together. So we've just learned from Frederick about the quantities of data which are collected here in CERN. And I want to insist that this kind of data boom is not only in the domain of the particle physics, it's pretty much in every single domain of science. So this is just one of the indicators showing us very clearly that the science which we are seeing today is in a process of very fast change. This change is very fast, very dynamic, and it's very difficult to predict where will it end. Probably it will never end. But it's clear already in which directions it's leading. It's clear that the quantities of data which are produced regularly on a daily basis are huge. Second thing which is very important to recognize is that this data cannot be and should not be used only by specific communities which create this data. When we are creating and collecting the data, we very often do not know who could be potential users. And only if we try to make them available and try to share them in the right way, we can exploit the potentials of all this data. So this is just, as I said, one of the indicators showing us very clearly that we are already witnessing new science which is called sometimes Science 2.0. But I think, coming from DigiConnect, that we can call it also e-science. E-science in a sense that it's really made possible by advancement of technologies for communication and calculation technologies. So I think in this respect, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing very radical changes, and it's very important that we see how we can put all the places, all the needs and bits in place that we can support these advancements both on European level but also globally. So what are we doing on European level? First of all, there is a funding instrument which you know very well, Horizon 2020, and I know that you are a very important stakeholder for us in this respective domain. But I want to insist that it's even more important that we have the proper regulatory framework in place which will facilitate this, to support this kind of advancements. So what I mean by proper regulatory framework? Of course, there is a dimension of the data privacy, which is very important for cloud computing, and also it's very important for the development in this direction. However, also there are a lot of other pieces of legislation which are crucial for advancement in this respective domain. First of all, let me just mention public sector information. As you probably know, years ago, European Commission has adopted specific legislation in the domain of the public sector information, which is actually stimulating the public authorities of the member states to make the publicly owned data. And I want to insist that this publicly owned data was already paid by taxpayers, to make this publicly owned data readily available to different stakeholders. I think we have moved very fast and very far in this respective domain. So already I think in this domain we have appropriate framework in place which facilitate that the publicly owned data is made readily available to different stakeholders throughout the world. Of course, there are very important bits and pieces there, like, for example, how to charge, what to charge if people are using this data. Also, for example, how cultural data should be made available to different stakeholders. And I think we work very closely with member states in order to advance in this respective domain. Other very important part, it's an integral part of Horizon 2020. You see it only in specific articles of rules for participation. These are actually articles in rules for participation which are foreseeing and actually implementing the decision to have all the scientific results readily available and publicly available for the open access to the scientific publication. We are very proud and very happy that this is an integral part of rules of participation, and I know that it will at the same time introduce additional requirements, additional challenges, which I hope that through the public cloud, this public science cloud will be able to address. One very important element in Horizon 2020, the regulatory part, not the funding one, is the specific, if you want, the pilot which we are experimenting of the public access to the data. As you know very well, in the rules of participation, we have foreseen specific areas of research in which we actually want to have the public access to the data, an obligatory one. Obligatory one in such a way that everyone who wants to participate in the project will be sharing the data. However, we at the same time foreseen a very specific exit clause which facilitates this in specific situations where there are legitimate claims that the data would be used by, for example, companies. They can exit from this option. So I think for us, the public access to the data is of very big importance, and what we want to do is promote it, first of all, in specific areas of Horizon 2020, but at the same time we facilitated that any domain, even that which is not mentioned as a core in the pilot, could enter as an opt-in in the pilot of the public access to the data. Then I think one additional element which is very important for us is the specific communication of cloud computing strategy which we have adopted in September 2012. As you know very well, in September 2012, European Commission has adopted this this communication, and this communication very specifically sets up a series of actions in the domain of the cloud computing. They range, for example, for working together with different stakeholders, most notably, of course, the ETSI in preparing and developing new standards in the domain of cloud computing. Very important is also to work with different stakeholders in order to see how to have the specific provisions in the contract which would avoid lock-in. And very important element in the cloud computing strategy is also establishing what we call the European partnership in the domain of the cloud computing. The European partnership in the domain of the cloud computing has already developed a report which has been published recently, and it's actually a first report, first recommendation, which is very important for us. We are expecting that in very near term, already before the end of this year, they will produce a final report which will help us shape the future strategies in this respective domain. Even more important, this report will be targeting all different stakeholders with the objective that we will be able to prepare appropriate partnerships and collective work in the future. Now, let me get back to Horizon 2020. As you know, Horizon 2020 has been adopted only recently, and we just launched first packages, of course, for project proposals. I should admit that we were overwhelmed with the response of the scientific community because a number of deadlines were just before the 15th of April, and the responses were fantastic, both in respect of the number of the proposals which came, as well in respect of the quality of the proposals which came. Now, of course, we are preparing the next launch of the work program 2016 and 17, but in the meantime, we are also looking forward for getting concrete proposals also in the domain of the cloud computing in science in two respective fields. One will be to work together on issues like standardization, and the other one, which is for us very new, something what we did not do in the past, is exploiting Horizon 2020 and public funds to support innovative public procurement. I should admit that for us, this is a completely new avenue. We do not have a lot of experience as European Commission, and I think in that respect, it's very important that we benefit from this partnership, this particular partnership, which we have managed to build with you. Now, let me get back to the cloud for science. I think cloud computing as such is already fully exploited by citizens in Europe and wider. We also know that a lot of companies are moving very fast in the domain of the cloud computing. However, it is also clear that public authorities as such need to take a very proactive position in respect of exploiting facilities of the cloud computing. There are several issues which should drive us in this. One, of course, is get better services for less money. We in the Commission, of course, are working very closely with the services which are responsible for European IT systems. These are colleagues from DG Digit, in order to exploit and explore possibilities which will lead us in this direction. This is, of course, something new, something which very often governments take very slow steps of adopting. However, from the perspective of getting better services with less money, this is definitely an issue which we have to be more active and more efficient in the future. However, there are specific experiences which we are building, most notably in the domain of the cloud for science, where actually this positive experience of the public cloud could help us to speed up the processes also not in other sectors of the public. So I think in this respect, it's very important to learn also from you. Where do you stand? What's going on? What are the challenges? Where are the problems? And I think by learning from you, we can, as a public administration on European Union level, but hopefully also that the public administrations on the level of the member states or local level could move faster in the domain of the cloud computing, using cloud computing services. So ladies and gentlemen, I think we are in a stage, as I said, where we are seeing radical changes of science. For me, it's very important to recall that we have to work together, we have to share information in this respect, and we have to, through that, shape the future in a better and more effective and efficient way. Last but not least, I just want to insist that we are now in a stage where we are shifting from one commission to the new commission. I know that you are on hands-on approach on a number of issues, but for us it will be very important with the new commission to bring it, to point to the new commission the success stories which we have. And what we are planning to do is, as you probably know, the new European Commission will take office around the end of this year, most probably around 1st of November this year. And in the meantime, meaning from now to summer, throughout summer, we have started a public consultation. Public consultation actually looking at what we have achieved collectively in respect of Europe 2020 strategy. Now, having been here in Switzerland and having been in CERN, of course, you might say, okay, this does not concern us. But for us, experiences and also identification of the future challenges which we need to address are very important, because I think CERN is in Europe, CERN is in Switzerland, and Switzerland is in Europe despite not a EU member state. And from this perspective, I think it's very important that we collectively, with your input, try to shape the policy of the new European Commission. So I'd just like to invite you. You already, Frederic, you pointed to the position paper of the e-infrastructure. It's very important input for us, which will help us to shape the future policy. And I think in this respect also maybe the science cloud experience could be one of the elements which you could contribute in this public consultation with the objective actually at looking at what has been achieved up to now, and at the same time looking at the challenges and opportunities which we are facing. So ladies and gentlemen, I think one of the elements which are also important, which I also want to emphasize here, is the relevance of e-infrastructure. I know that I talk to those who do not need additional speeches in this direction, but you know that Europe and CERN has an excellent story to tell regarding the results of and achievements in the domain of the grid computing. In a number of other domains, we maybe to some extent missed the train. We were too slow to react. However, I think in the future, especially with the experience by building together public services in the domain of the public cloud, including science, would be very important elements which will help us shaping the future. So with this respect, with this message, ladies and gentlemen, and with the invitation that we work very closely together, I'd like to welcome you once again. It's a pleasure to be with you here, and I'm looking forward also for input from your side. Thank you very much.